Hey everyone, it's Jenny from the WoW Design team. I hope everyone is having a good day today. Today I'm having another go with the WoW changes. I'm using the box set, but you can now get all of these in individual pots if you've got some particular favourites. And I'm going to be showing you a technique that I've been using recently, which I call the tone-on-tone technique, but it's basically using the WoW changes with an embossing powder of your choosing to create a tone-on-tone look using both a changed embossing powder and that same embossing powder without the changer in it. So I'll show you how I did it in two different ways to create the cards you saw at the start of this video. So first off, I'm taking a 4¼ inch by 5½ inch panel of the WoW embossing cardstock, and I've grabbed a sheet of printer paper just to protect my work surface, and I'm coating it completely with WoW embossing ink. I'm then going to choose my embossing powder. I'm using a bunch of metallic embossing powders today. This one is etched platinum. It's from the Seth Apter METALZ with a Z trio from WoW. These are kind of distressed, vintagey looking versions of embossing powders that are the metallic embossing powders. So copper is in there, platinum is in there. I think there's a gold in there as well. They're really good. They're kind of like a blend of different colours to make up that platinum, and I'm coating the entire panel with my embossing ink and shaking the powder over it. Now once that panel's cooled, I'm going to add another layer on top, but this time I'm going to use my changers. So I've grabbed the texture changers here and one of the empty pots, and I'm scooping 3 spoonfuls. This is like a mini spoon that I've got, it's from Nuvo, and I'm just scooping 3 spoonfuls into a pot here. Now it's important to use a metal spoon when you use these changers. You're just trying to avoid getting a lot of extra static electricity into the pots, so use a metal spoon. I think that's one of the recommendations Marion has. Just anything that will allow you to have an equal amount of changer and your embossing powder. And then once you've added in that same equal amount of embossing powder into your pot, this is again the etched platinum, give it a really good shake. Now on my panel I am grabbing a stencil here and I'm taping it at the back because I'm going to use my embossing ink to create that stenciled image on the top of my embossed panel. This stencil is from Gina K Designs. It is the Snowflake Mandala. You've seen me use this one before and it's one of my favourite stencils. I love mandala stencils. And I'm just using my embossing ink pad and just smoothing it all over, just really kind of pushing down to get it in between those holes in the stencil. And then I'm going to carefully remove it, being careful not to smear, and then remove that tape. And I didn't use an embossing powder tool like static tool before I did this. You don't need to. It doesn't matter if you get any stray embossing powder flecks because they're just going to melt into the background. We're doing a tone on tone here. If you were doing different colours, you probably would want to do that. And then I'm using my mixture. I'm just going to shake it all over that embossing ink, and you'll see that you start to get that pattern showing through. I'm then going to heat it with my heat tool, and because we've added texture into that embossing powder, it shows up really well. It's a tone-on-tone look, so it is subtle, but if you did this without adding the changer in, it would just melt into the background. And because we've added that texture in, it also feels really kind of cool and bumpy. You can feel that pattern when you rub your finger over the top of it. So I'm going to set that to one side, and I'm grabbing a different embossing powder now and doing the same thing again just to show you a slightly different way to do it. This is the metallic rose gold embossing powder. It's a colour blend and lots of different colours of like copper and then kind of a pale pinkish colour. And again, I've coated my panel of WoW embossing cardstock all over with embossing ink and then just done that one layer of embossing powder. This time I've grabbed the Glisten changer. This is my favourite. This is my absolute favourite changer. I think they need to bring this one out in a big jug of it because it's just so nice. It's super sparkly, adds a really pretty iridescent look into any of the powders you use. And I was really interested to see how it would work with a metallic embossing powder particularly. This time I'm only using 2 scoops because 3 is probably going to be a bit too much. And I'm going to use it with a stamp this time. This is the Hearts and Twine stamp set from WOW. And I'm going to use the large heart first off. I'm going to ink it up with embossing ink and then stamp it. I am actually going to stamp it what I thought was directly into the center of my panel. It turns out I was slightly off, but it's okay because I was going to be creating a background anyway. So instead of doing an all over background as I had originally planned, I decided to keep the images slightly over to the left hand side for that more kind of, I guess, modern look. So I'm going to stamp it directly into the center, off center, once I've coated it in embossing ink. And then be careful, make sure you lift directly up and don't shift that acrylic block when you're stamping onto a panel of heat embossed cardstock. It is quite slick and the stamps will more easily slip, so you just have to be quite careful. And then I've grabbed my trusty coffee filter and I'm shaking that Glisten and rose gold mix all over my embossed image and then heating it up, and you'll see that that changer lightens the embossing powder slightly and adds a bunch of sparkle into it, so it does stand out really well against the heat embossed background. And because we're using that same embossing powder, it gives this really pretty tone on tone look. So I'm using that same stamp again, stamping it a couple more times, and then I'm going to go back to the stamp set and grab the smaller stamp, the smaller heart stamp that in a couple of places as well. So you see I'm building up a background going from the large size to the smaller size, and then you'll also see that I grab that kind of twinkly firework type looking stamp and stamp that in a couple of places as well. I am embossing I am adding the powder as I stamp, and then I'm heating each of the images together at the same time. So I heated all of the large hearts, then I'm adding the powder for the small hearts, and then heat embossing, and then I'm adding this smaller image, adding the powder, stamping it, adding the powder, and then heating it again. There isn't a particular reason for that, but it just seems to work well for me. Now to finish my cards, I've added them to a white note card made from 110 Nina Solar White cardstock using really strong double-sided tape. And then I've grabbed these sentiment stamps. These are new from Ulta New. They are the Mega Label Love stamp set. And I've grabbed the For You and the Celebrate. I've inked them up in Obsidian Pigment ink from Ulta New, and I'm going to stamp those down. And because pigment ink stays wet for a little bit longer, you can actually heat emboss with it. And I thought I'd try using one of the changers on its own. So I've grabbed the Sheen, which is the other changer from the kit that you can get. You can also buy it on its own. And then I heat embossed it over the top, and you can see it made that black ink look almost iridescent. It's like a really cool look. It's a little bit different to what you'd get if you just added normal clear embossing powder over the top, but it also doesn't have the sparkle if you just used clear glitter. So it is a little bit different. And then I trimmed out those sentiments, leaving a white border, and popped them up on foam tape to finish my cards. I hope this video gave you some ideas for using the WOW changers, a little bit different. Be sure to check out all the other videos over on the WOW YouTube channel. We've got tons to check out, and have a wonderful day. Bye.